This meeting, I'd like to start by explaining just very briefly what the energy community first is. We are not a profit organization. We are an international institution. So the fiduciary of that fund, that's the role that we have been assuming for it, is an international institution, which, as far as international institutions go, probably enjoys a AAA rating. And we are managing a fund which by now has accumulated some 160 million euros, either in pledges or most of it already paid. So we are disposing of a quite significant amount that we would like to implement by disbursements as soon as it is possible, because as you can imagine, the overall objective of the fund is to support Ukraine in this very critical time, so we don't have time to lose. The way the fund works is that it is driven by demand identified by Ukrainian energy companies, and that this demand is first being verified and being prioritized by the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine, who's also with us here on the call, before we launch a procurement process. The procurement process is being run by Tetra Tech, an international procurement agency. You see, I'm introducing the players in this whole procedure already, and that's where you are supposed to get involved in this procurement procedure. There are different ways that we will explain you a bit later on how you can proactively be in touch with either us and or Tetra Tech, the procurement agency.
Why is the sound not going to us?
Because I shouldn't say play back properly yet.
Hello.
It's nice to see you, but I would kindly ask you to mute yourself, as this is a conference that we would like to organize in the most efficient manner. I was just saying, and I was just explaining the very principal way how this Ukraine Energy Support Fund is run and is functioning. After procurement, that evidently goes as any procurement process goes, namely the best bid, the best quote is being selected. There will be a short period of contract negotiations between a possible vendor, the selected vendor, pre-selected vendor, that is you, potentially, and the Ukraine energy or heating company that has made the request for support in the first place. That means also by consequence that a contract is being concluded by a vendor, potentially you, and that particular Ukraine energy support energy company active in the energy or heat sector, and the payment, the disbursement of the fund, in other words, is being done by us, by the Energy Community Secretariat, according to the terms and conditions that have been stipulated and agreed in this bilateral purchase agreement between a vendor and the Ukraine company on the other hand. The Energy Community Secretariat also has set up a procedure on how to manage this fiduciary role. My name is Dirk Buschle. I'm the Deputy Director here and in charge of management, and I have with me a number of colleagues. I may introduce in particular Marie-Therese Richter and Gregor Weinzettel, who together with me make sure that the donations that we have received, overall some 160 millions, are being dispersed in line with the requirements of the fund that I just have explained in a nutshell. And the purpose of our call today is to get your interest in the fund. It is evidently about solidarity with Ukraine, but it is also a business opportunity to help Ukrainian companies by selling at the best possible conditions, and the best possible conditions relate not only to price but also to quick delivery, most needed items and equipment under the current circumstances. And to learn more about that, it is my pleasure now to give the floor to Deputy Minister Farid Safarov of the Ukrainian government, of the Ministry of Energy in Ukraine, to set the scene and share with you information on what is most needed by the Ukrainian energy and heat sector right now. Deputy Minister, if you're ready, it'd be a pleasure to hear this information directly from you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Greetings to suppliers from all over the world. Yeah, is it okay? Yeah, thank you. So greetings to all the companies who express their intention to become the suppliers and vendors in order to help the Ukrainian energy sector those challenges that we are currently facing. I would appreciate if my team opens the presentation. Yulia, please. I will give you a very brief description for you to understand the current status quo in the energy sector of Ukraine, and how we are trying to combat those challenges that we are facing. So please, next slide. The current situation in the energy sector is that since the beginning of full-scale war on the 24th of February 2022, the energy sector suffered in parallel to other civilian sectors in Ukraine. Actually, on the 11th of September, we faced the first massive shelling of energy infrastructure from across all the territory of Ukraine. We are facing constant massive missile attacks against the energy facilities, especially electric energy. So we're talking about Ukraine's energy system has endured 11 waves of massive missile attacks and 14 waves of drones, Shaheds, the Iranian drones, on the Ukrainian energy system and heat supply facilities. At the moment, we have, unfortunately, at about 50% of our Ukraine's power grid injured or damaged. That leads to power outages all across Ukraine. Moreover, since the massive attacks against the generation facilities started, we are facing the power deficit in the power system, which forces to use planned and emergency shutdowns every day. And that is a challenge that all our citizens are facing because we have most of the day without electricity supply. That directly affects all the humanitarian sectors like hospitals and other sectors. Therefore, we need emergency restoration and reparation of the facilities in order to ensure that the supply of electricity to the final consumers is stabilized. Energy companies have a critical need for the equipment and materials to repair energy facilities and restore sustainable energy supply to consumers. I really appreciate the efforts of the Secretariat of the Energy Community for their constant assistance since the very beginning of the war, because due to their assistance, due to their effective role in communication with our international partners, we managed to create and organize this stable line of the supply of critical needs of equipment and materials for our energy companies. For the moment, we have a couple of branches of such a cooperation. The first one is material supply of the goods that is supervised by the energy community and distributed all over the country to the energy companies of Ukraine, both private and state-owned. And the second second branch is financial aid that is provided by EU member states and other partnering countries of Ukraine to the energy security, to the next slide, please. That is governed by the Energy Community Secretariat. Julia, please, next slide. So how does it work, and what actually has been done? So the ministry, together with the Energy Community Secretariat and the donors, signed fiduciary agreements and framework agreements with Ukrainian counterparties who would be the beneficiaries of such goods, according to which we, as a ministry, collect the requests of energy companies from all over Ukraine. Then we prioritize them according to the prioritization criteria developed together with the Energy Community Secretariat and approved by the USAID program and their subsidiary, actually the implementation body called Tetra Tech. They are maintaining energy security project in Ukraine. As soon as we collect all those requests and prioritize them for the certain amount of money that we have already collected in the fund, we start the energy community actually gives a launch to the process of the procurement that is done by Tetra Tech. Tetra Tech looks at the requests of the companies to those materials, equipment, and other type of goods that are requested by energy companies of Ukraine, address those requests to different vendors, both Ukrainian ones or suppliers, both Ukrainian ones and the European or worldwide ones. So, for example, you might be those potential suppliers of the goods, and start this procurement process. Energy Community Secretariat disperses the funds, the cost of this equipment from the fund, and the Ukrainian counterparties shall receive in the most efficient way and in most short period of time those goods that are needed. When talking about the main priority, so we're always looking at, let me say, normal pricing and the period of the supply of such goods, and that is more important. The quicker the equipment will be brought to Ukraine, the more stabilized the energy system of Ukraine will be. So that is a brief description you may see on the screen of the process. Please proceed with the next slide. So it is the scheme of how this process works. Actually, we have financial donors. They distribute money to the fund, and the fiduciary of this fund is Energy Community Secretariat. This fund is called Ukraine Energy Support Fund. Energy Community Secretariat does have their own internal team called Ukraine Support Task Force that is strongly cooperating with the ministry's working team and is working on those requests. The ministry collects the requests from critical energy infrastructure operator companies, the needed requests, and then after the prioritization sends it to Energy Community, and actually USAID, Tetra Tech's team start the procurement of those goods. And then there is a financial transaction from the European account of the Energy Community to the account of the potential or finalized supplier or vendor. And then you have to bring those goods, supply them to Ukraine as quick as possible. Please, next slide. So at the meeting, so we have the working group established by the decree of the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine. I'm leading this working group. So this working group is tightly working with our energy companies, is collecting those requests, prioritizing them, etc., etc. We had the meeting on the 5th of January 2023, where we approved the list of equipment, fuel, and services for supply to energy companies under above mentioned procurement procedure at the expense of the funds received by the Energy Support Fund. At the moment, we have already chosen the equipment at a cost of euros. That is, those are the needs of 30 energy companies of Ukraine. In that list, we have more than 3,600 units of goods, approximately 19 tons of pipe equipment and fuels, to be purchased in the most efficient way, with most efficient pricing and the terms of delivery. If to split and categorize the needs of energy companies of Ukraine, you might see that there are such categories as transformers, batteries, generators, switches, disconnectors, special equipment, fuel, insulators, devices and tools, shut-off fittings, pumps, turbines, surge limiters, pipe equipment, motor transport, special type of motor transport equipment, etc. Therefore, we would appreciate if you would actually behave in the most effective way, so quickly respond to those requests for commercial offers that might be addressed to your company from Tetra Tech's team. And actually, if you could manage to effectively create this logistic chain in order to securely and quickly bring the goods to Ukraine. I would appreciate if you pay a specific attention and take at the level of the top management of your companies a special attention to the contracts that would be signed together, would be signed with Ukrainian energy companies, and you can definitely be sure that you, like the soldiers, will be protecting the energy sector and civilians in Ukraine. Thanks once more to our partners, to Energy Community Secretariat, and to Tetra Tech's team for our tight cooperation. Thank you. If there are any questions, please address them.
Thanks a lot, Deputy Minister. This is very important also for vendors to set the scene and already to get an overview of the demand, which is not currently only prevailing in Ukraine, but which has also and already been formalized through support requests. So that is precisely what the next procurement campaign will be about. And I believe probably before we start collecting your questions and get into an interactive discussions for which we will actually stop the recording, we would just also continue with presenting you the ways on how you can get involved in this procedure, because we do rely, and that's the purpose of today's call, we do rely on your proactive involvement. We hope that you can show us what you can contribute in terms of satisfying Ukrainian demand in the energy and heat sector. Right now, the demand is quite diversified, so it's not one type of equipment only. There should be plenty of interesting demand items for many of you. But before we would ask for your questions and give you responses to those, I will pass the floor over firstly to my colleagues here, Marie-Therese and Gregor, and then to our procurement agents, to Tetra Tech, that should enable you to have the full picture of what is needed on the one hand and how you can get involved in satisfying those needs on the other. Thank you, Marie-Therese.
Thank you. Yes, I think Deputy Minister was already so kind to put the fund in perspective of the whole operation, how support comes in by donations from governments and how it goes out. What I would like to draw your attention to is how you come into the picture and how you can contribute actually to this fund to become operational via providing your products to energy companies in Ukraine. So we have this special purpose account here in Austria, and as Deputy Minister has explained, Ukrainian energy and heating companies requested support for specific items. These supports have been approved by the ministry, and these items are now under procurement. I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that this list of items under procurement is constantly evolving. So currently, items for a value of 107 million are out for procurement, but there are further funds available and further support requests coming in. So the portfolio of products needed will change and is changing probably as we're speaking. For you as vendors to come into the scheme to actually provide the items needed and financed through the fund, there are actually two avenues. The first one would be the form at the Energy Community Secretariat's website. You will find that under the first bullet, and I will also post it afterwards in the chat. It's a simple spreadsheet where we would kindly ask you, if you consider that you have products in your portfolio that would be of use for energy companies and heating companies in Ukraine, to fill out this form, simply present your portfolio. What will happen with this form? The Secretariat's team will pre-screen the items, pre-match whether there are any items on this list which a priori we can already conclude that are requested and approved by the ministry and out for procurement. But no matter whether pre-matching is successful or not, the information about your portfolio will be forwarded to our external independent procurement agency, the US-8 Energy Security Project implemented by Tetra Tech. This ensures transparency and that your portfolio is taken into account. The second avenue is under the third bullet. It is directly the website of the Energy Security Project of Tetra Tech implementing the procurement strategy of procuring those items that have been approved by the ministry. On this website, you will find a list of items that are currently out of procurement, constantly evolving, and setting out all items that are currently purchased and bought under the fund. Formal offers will go through the procurement agency, but any presentation of portfolio will be taken into account. Tetra Tech is currently procuring under its emergency procedure, which means that they contact suppliers that have the products either on their shelves or are able to produce them favorably within a short lead time. So it is of a major benefit if Tetra Tech knows about your portfolio, so we would strongly encourage you to fill out the form on our website and otherwise constantly monitor the list of procurement items on the Tetra Tech's website. If you have any questions, you can address either us or Tetra Tech directly. We will, after this call, circulate frequently asked questions where you will also find the links and the email addresses. To conclude, the outcome of such a procurement procedure will be a contract between you, a successful winner of one of the procurement procedures, and the Ukrainian company needing the goods. The Secretariat will act as payee, who will pay for the goods, and this can be done in two forms depending on your needs, either direct payment to you. This is of major importance to us. We ensure that the payment does not go through the Ukrainian energy company, but we as Secretariat, as fiduciary of the funds, pay directly to US suppliers upon submission of the invoice. Or another possibility with the option of prepayments depending on the needs on the items. And a second option is issuing an irrevocable letter of guarantee if that would be required by a company's policies. This goes always directly to you from our funds, where we can guarantee swift disbursement of the money to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to conclude that first round, which is supposed to introduce you to the way how the fund and procurement functions, I would kindly ask our colleague Ashley Hunziker from Tetra Tech to present that part of the process that is most interesting and most important to you, namely how, based on that list of demand that Deputy Minister Safarov mentioned, currently value of around 107 million, how that is being matched with available vendors, that means including yours, offers and portfolio, namely through the procurement procedure that they have designed. Ashley, are you ready to take over?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Dirk and Marie-Therese. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashley Hunziker. I'm the procurement director for Tetra Tech on the Energy Security Project in Ukraine. Also working with the Secretariat to procure all of these items for the ministry that everyone's been describing. Basically, we have between the Secretariat and Tetra Tech a list of almost 400 vendors, including everyone that's on the call today. Once we have the details for all of these items off the list from the ministry, we're going to start sending out RFQs with like items. So one RFQ for transformers, one RFQ for circuit breakers, things like that. We will both post them on Tetra Tech and the Energy Security Project's website. So that is a resource that all vendors can look at any time. And I know Marie-Therese will share that link both on here and on the FAQ, as well as we will send out emails with all new RFQs to all 400 or more vendors. Obviously, vendors will get RFQs that do not match what they might be selling, but we want to give everyone an opportunity to reply. And we've got each RFQ will contain the email address with which you can submit a formal quotation and a due date, along with all specifications and requirements by the ministry and their counterparts and the beneficiaries in Ukraine. We are currently working with all the beneficiaries to finalize the details and the specifications of items, and we hope to start sending RFQs out early next week. And like they said, it's $107 million, so there will be a lot of RFQs for a lot of items. So things will start coming out fairly quickly sometime next week. That's a brief summary. Obviously, we're available to answer any questions that you guys might have moving forward.
Thanks a lot, Ashley. And I think that concludes the first part of this conference call today. You have heard and probably asked to digest a lot of information. We understand that there may be a lot more basic but also detailed questions that you would like to clarify. We'll stop the recording right now. Please also be informed and be aware that we will send the information not only through the chat, but more information as to the procurement procedure, as to the way how the fund is working, as to the way how vendors like yourselves can get involved in the process, and